Today I'm introducing Tasha Diesselhorst, who has signed on to coach the Lady Rangers. I think she needs a round of applause for that. They've been through some hard times lately, but I can see that a turnaround is about to take place. She's the daughter of Randy and Robin Turney, who reside in Cherokee, married to Adam Diesselhorst. Graduated from Medford High School in 2002 and attended Oklahoma Christian University from 2002 to 2006, where she was an NAIA All-American. Congratulations. She also graduated with the President's Medal. That meant she had the highest GPA of her graduating class. She obtained her master's degree from the University of Central Oklahoma in 2007 in education and was the head girls basketball coach at Pond Creek Hunter from 2007 to 2016, during which time she accumulated visits to 4 state tournaments, state champions in 2014 and state runner-up in 2016, and in the past 6 seasons at Pond Creek has compiled a record of 152 and 23. Wow. And I mentioned her name to a family friend, Caitlin Hofen, and she said, "Oh yes, I know Ms. Diesselhorst." She said, "We've played against her, and she coaches in spike heels, but you'd ought to see her move. She can really move in those spike heels." Tasha Diesselhorst.
Yes, my assistant coach about lost a toenail with those spiked heels a few times. So, well, first of all, I'd just like to thank you for having me today. Thank you for the invite to come in and talk. I'm excited to not only be in Alva and be at Northwestern, but to be able to come here and speak with you today. I thought I'd just start out by just kind of telling you a little bit about me and kind of my journey through life so far. Arden touched on some of the high points, but figured I'd let you get to know me a little bit more and then just kind of talk about some things that are important to me in my programs, in my basketball programs, and some things that we look to instill here at Northwestern. So most of you know I've grown up in this area my entire life, grown up in a coaching family. That was one of the biggest blessings, I think, in my life, was growing up around coaches and watching their influence through young people growing up. I had a lot of big brothers and big sisters that would come into our family. My grandpa was a football coach out at Balco, Oklahoma, Robert Kramer. For 35 years he coached at Balco, and he won several state championships there in football and track. My aunt, Kim Kramer, she was at Woodward, and she won 4 state championships there, and she is actually, I can announce this now, that she is actually going to be my assistant at Northwestern. So we'll be adding her to the coaching family here, and she's going through her retirement process from teaching right now. So here in the next month or two, she'll be joining us at Northwestern. So I'm excited to have her on board there. My grandpa, my dad's dad, John Turney, farms over by Waukeeta in Manchester, and he is actually this weekend being inducted into the Boys Coaches Basketball Hall of Fame in Ada, and so that's something that we're pretty proud of. My dad was inducted a couple years earlier, and so they will both get to share that together, so we're excited about doing that. Graduated from Medford, and I played for my dad. So having your dad as your head basketball coach is interesting, but what most people don't know is that my mom was my assistant coach as well. So you add her into the mix, and most of the time it was dad yelling at me and then mom yelling at dad for yelling at me. So most of the time I could get one of them at least on my side. But having your dad as a coach, a lot of people would ask me how that was, and it was challenging and rewarding in the same aspect. And I think it kind of helped me grow into the person I was. It helped me be mentally tough in certain situations because I knew Dad was not going to take it easy on me. One of my favorite stories about playing for him, it was my senior year, and we were at Tulsa team camp. We were at the University of Tulsa. Big team camp, lots of teams, lots of people around, and he had subbed me out, and I came to sit on the bench, and I guess I didn't sit down to his liking. I guess I plopped down instead of sat down. So he didn't like that too much, and he turned around and told me to go sit in the corner. And I looked at him like, I'm 17 years old. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm like, we're not at home. So I looked at my mom and I was like, okay, and I just kind of didn't do anything and sat there, and a couple seconds go by and he turns around and he said, I said go sit in the corner. And I looked at Mom, Mom was like, you better go do it. So I walked to the corner of the University of Tulsa gymnasium and sat in the corner until my dad told me it was okay to come back to the bench. So we laugh about that now. It was not funny to me at the time, but we laugh at it now. After I finished with Medford, I went to Oklahoma Christian. One of the big reasons and one of the major influences in my life of going to Oklahoma Christian was the men's coach there, which was Dan Hayes, which is a Northwestern alum. Coach Hayes was like a second dad to me. He was, like I said, one of the huge reasons why I went there. You know, I was able to not only learn from my coaches in the women's program, but I learned a lot from Coach Hayes too, watching his men's programs there. So he was a huge influence on me as a player and now as a coach. I also had a teacher there whose name was Max Dobson, and he's been at Oklahoma Christian for several years in the physical education department. And we were sitting in class one day, and I was a physical education major and I had an English minor. And we were sitting there in class one day, and I had him for several classes, and Dr. Dobson had looked at me and he said, you know what, you remind me of somebody. And I said, well, who do I remind you of? And he said, well, we had a young lady that played basketball here that was a PE major and an English minor, and you remind me a whole lot of her. And I said, oh yeah, who's that? And he said, Sherry Cole. And I thought, that's a pretty big comparison. And I don't by any means think I'm Sherry Cole, but when he said that to me, I thought, you know what, that'd be pretty cool someday to kind of be able to do the stuff that she gets to do. And I think just that little mentioning that he mentioned to me while I was at school there, and she graduated, she was an OC graduate, kind of inspired me and kind of instilled in me something like, okay, maybe I can do that someday. And so that was a huge influence on me as well. I had a great playing experience at Oklahoma Christian. We went to the national tournament 4 years. We were, like I said, I was an All-American 1 year. Definitely, I was recruited to be a guard, and when I got there, I found myself in the lane, and I played a small forward and never came out because that was the position that I could play. So that's where I was. I had the privilege of playing against OU every year, having Sherry Cole as an alum. We would go play them in a game every year, and I got to guard Courtney Paris in her debut at OU, and so that was interesting to say the least. The only thing my coach told me before the game was, don't take a charge. She said, just get out of the way. So, I did. I listened, and I got out of the way. So that was a fun experience. After I finished at Oklahoma Christian, I got my master's at UCO, and while I was doing that, I had the privilege to coach the JV team at Oklahoma Christian. They have their own junior varsity program that's not with the varsity program, and so I got to do that for a year while I was getting my master's, and so I could still be around the program, and that was an opportunity that I was very thankful for, and it kind of got my feet wet into the coaching world and kind of prepared me for what was to come. After I finished that, I was looking for a job, and having graduated from Medford, if you would have told me that I would be at Pond Creek, I would have told you were crazy, because we did not like Pond Creek when I was in Medford. They were big rivals and still are. So I thought, I'll just go interview. I'll just kind of go. It'll be a good experience. I'll go interview a few places, and we'll see what happens. So I went and interviewed. I was very familiar with the athletic director there. Left having a good feeling and got in my car. About an hour later, I get the call, the job's yours if you want it. And I thought, okay, now I really have to think about this. This isn't going to be just an experience. So after thought and prayer, I accepted the job at Pond Creek, and I've been there for 9 years. When I first got there, it was a program that was not recognized for girls basketball. They had always had athletes, great football teams, but the girls basketball program was in pretty bad shape when I got there. And I knew there were some younger kids coming that had the potential to kind of fill some spots, but it was a matter of kind of getting it headed in the right direction. My first year, I'll never forget this record. This is a number that'll stick in my mind forever. But my first year, we were 4-19. And I lost more games that year than I lost my entire career in high school. I lost 16 games in high school as a player, and I lost 19 my first year of coaching. And I remember I was coaching. I coached everything. I coached 5th and 6th grade, junior high, and high school. And I remember I coached my first 5th and 6th grade game. You know, here I was, 23 years old. Here I go. I'm starting my career, and I coached my first 5th and 6th grade game, and we lost both of them. And I remember going home crying, thinking I was the worst coach ever, and I wasn't going to make it, and I shouldn't be doing this. But that season was a very humbling experience for me, because I had never been in that position as a player, and so I think it helped me grow a lot as a person and as a coach. We were 4-19 the next year. We won 11 games, and then we mentioned the record after the next 6. We went on to win, I think we won 40 championships while I was there, tournament championships, playoff championships, and then I was there for 9. Those first 2 were rough, and for the next 7 years we won the conference. So we went 49-0 in the conference after 2 years. So inheriting this program at Alva, I've been told there's been some kind of down times right now, and then people have asked me how I'm going to respond, and I've been there. I know this is a different level, but I've kind of been through it, and I've built my program, and I felt like that was something that I took ownership of at Palm Creek. Was it something that I prided myself in, is that we built that program up. And that's what I look to do here too, is just get it started and going in the right direction, and it won't happen immediately. I hope we win more than 4 games. I don't want to go 4-19 again, but it's a matter of just getting people to buy into your system and getting it going in the right direction, and I think we'll be able to do that here. Lastly, I just wanted to kind of share with you some cornerstones of my system and my coaching philosophy. Not a lot of X's and O's, but just things that are important to me in my program. And if you ask any of my former players about these, they'll tell you that it's no lie. But one of the things that I hang my hat on, and I've always thought is very important, are fundamentals. And to me, fundamentals are the little things. And to me, the little things make a big difference in the long run. I'm one of those that will spend time on dribbling, passing, catching, shooting before we even think about putting a drill together, because I'm not going to watch an ugly drill if we can't do the little things that drill entails. So I'm a very big proponent of fundamentals. I always tell my kids to do the little things right each day, and then the big things will come. And then a saying that I took from a very, very successful coach, Gino Ariyama, and this was something that we talked about. My girls always told me that I'm a perfectionist as a coach, that they can't do anything right, that I want it to be perfect. And they're probably right. To some extent, I am kind of a perfectionist, and I do want things to be done the right way and to be done right. But I heard Gino one time in a press conference say that if you seek perfection every day, that along the way you'll find success. And that doesn't mean we'll be perfect every day, and that doesn't mean we'll be perfect every practice, but if we're aiming towards that, then we'll find ourselves in successful ways. So that's something that I try to instill in my players. Another thing that's extremely important to me is discipline, and I think that goes with on and off the court. I think when you hold kids to a standard and they know what that standard is, and you hold them accountable to that, then you can be successful. Discipline, I always tell my kids, when I'm not yelling at you, then that means I don't care about you. So they know I'll care about them a lot most of the time. So, but I think that's important for them to know. And again, to me, the discipline part of it goes back to the little things. If they can get away with the little things, then I can't trust them with the big things. And that goes from, I'm one of those coaches, if you don't touch a line while we're running, then we're all going to do it again. If you're not clapping your hands, or if you're not talking in practice, then we're going to start over again. So I'm very in tune to the little things that make the big things happen. The third thing is, I think character is very important, and I think that goes on and off the floor, because I tell my girls that they're an outlet of me. They're a reflection of me, and I want them to have a positive reflection of me. And there is something I give my girls every year at Palm Creek. I gave them a playbook, And it would have our sets and basketball stuff in it, but in the front it would always have some type of motivational poems or some type of motivational every year. But every year I included this one poem, and it's really, really short, and I wanted to read it to you because I think it's really good, and this is something that I stress to my girls, and some of you may have heard it. It's called "A Little Eyes Upon You," and it lets these girls know that, and I think it's college level, high school level, whatever, there's people watching you. There are little kids watching you. There are adults watching you. And the way you carry yourself can be a positive influence to somebody, and it could make a difference by just your simple body language sometimes. And the poem reads, "There are little eyes upon you, and they're watching night and day, take in every word you say. There are little hands all eager to do anything you do, and a little girl who's dreaming of the day she'll be like you. You're the little angel's idol, you're the wisest of the wise. In her little mind about you, no suspicions ever arise. She believes in you devoutly, holds all you say and do. She will say and do in your way when she's grown up just like you. There's a wide-eyed little girl who believes you're always right, and her eyes are always opened and she watches day and night. You are setting an example every day in all you do for the little girl who's waiting to grow up to be like you." And I think that's so important, because sometimes kids wonder why I hold them to the standard I do, and I always ask them, if there was a little kid in here watching our practice, would you be proud of how you're acting with her standing here? And that's what I want them to be, an example and a role model to those little kids that are watching them. Fourthly, this is something that was in the wall in our locker room at Pond Creek, and it was something I said continuously, was to play hard and have fun. And I think those are two of the most important things, simple things, but the biggest compliment to me as a coach is when I walk off the floor, not so much that we won or not so much of how we shot the ball or played defense, but if someone will tell me that my kids played hard, then that's the biggest compliment I can take away from that, is they competed and they played hard for me. And I think with girls, getting girls to play hard for you is probably the number one thing you have to start with in a program, or you won't be successful, because they have to be able to play hard for you and to play hard for each other before you can get anything to work. And I think a coach's job, to me, a coach's job is getting a player to reach a level that they couldn't have gotten to without you. And I think that goes with basketball and life. That, to me, that's my job, is to get kids to a level on the basketball floor and in their life that maybe they couldn't have gotten to without me. And if I do that, I feel like that I've enriched their life some way and that I've done my job. And lastly, this is something that we break out to, and we'll continue to break out to. Instead of saying team, and some teams say team together, my teams always broke out to family. And it was an acronym that I always wrote on the board on the first day that I had my girls. And if you break down family, I always told them it stood for forget about me, I love you. And to me, that means you look at the person next to you in the locker room and say, it's not about me, it's about this person. It's not about me and what I can do. It's about working hard for my teammates and working hard for my team, and we're in this together. So that is something that we broke out to. And again, that's getting girls to come together as a group. And when you get a group of girls that can play together and get along, then it's pretty fun to watch. If you have a group of girls that don't get along, then you don't want to be anywhere near. So, lastly, and I know I didn't talk a whole lot about the X's and O's and my philosophy in that way, and I know some of you are probably wondering, so I'll touch on it just briefly, but I would think number one, I'm probably a defensive-minded coach. I'm one of those that will try anything defensively. I don't want the other team to ever score. I should say that. My girls will tell you that. I don't want them to score ever. But I'm definitely not going to let a player have 40 points, 35 points, because that just irks me. But I do different things defensively, and just kind of depending on the girls I have, we figure out what's going to work best for us. Offensive minded, we've always kind of prided ourselves at Palm Creek. We play pretty fast with a pretty good transition game, and it's having a good point guard. I've been blessed with some good point guards and some good guards in my system. I think that's the number one key in making a transition game work is your point guard. The dribble drive is really popular right now. The three-point line has completely changed the game from college all the way down to high school. It's either a three or a layup these days, and so I think you have to definitely utilize that. And I like to utilize the ball screen quite often. I think it's probably, you watch college, NBA, everything, I think if you watch the last series with the Thunder and the Warriors, I think it's probably the toughest thing to defend at any level, and it makes defensive players have to think about what they're going to do when that happens, or game plan for what they're going to do with ball screens. So that's something that we utilize quite a bit in my offensive scheme. But those are just some of the things, like I said, that have been important to me. And if you ask my girls that have played for me and been in my system, those are things that have been important to us as a group and that we kind of hang our hat on and want to do each and every day. So that's all I have. Do you have any questions? I will answer if there's any questions.
I've got a question. Would you go over a little bit? I suppose you've seen your girls and you've met with them.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking about recruiting still. Okay, so what do you see as what you have and what you need in the way of what we've got now and what you need to recruit?
I briefly saw, that was probably the most challenging part, is I briefly saw the girls when I got there. I had them for about 2 weeks, and it was kind of a hands-off period where they could only see them for about 2 hours in that week. So that was challenging to kind of see them and see what they had. I have watched lots of film on past seasons of kind of what some of these girls can do. But we've already signed 6 or 7 girls and have a few openings that we're looking for. I think we're extremely heavy in the guard position and extremely athletic in the guard position. We're looking to kind of add some 4 or 5 type players that can stretch the floor and run the floor and kind of play in and out. We're looking at a couple of those type players that can defend the post, but then are able to bring those 4 and 5s out and can shoot and stretch the floor in that way. Like I said, I like to get up and down a lot, so I want players that can run the floor at all positions and get us going quickly. So that's kind of where we're at. We're returning 10 returning players, and right now we've added 7 to our roster. So,
Did you get to coach against your dad?
I did not. I coached, my sister is a coach, and we coached against each other several times, and that is stressful. I will not miss that. Mom and Dad did not come to the games. They went somewhere else. My sister and I's relationship has gotten much better since I took this job. So that was not fun. No, I did. It was pretty neat. The first year I made it to the state tournament in 2013, my dad took his team to the state tournament. So we were both coaching in the state tournament at the same time. So that was pretty, at that point he had started coaching boys and got away from the girls. So we never coached against each other, but we got to be at the state tournament at the same time. And so it was pretty special.
Are any of the Alva or Woodward girls who graduated this year coming?
I'm still working on the Hobbs girl. I'm hoping OSU doesn't work out for her, but I'll let you know about that. None of the current ones that have graduated. The Farrell girl, Bailey Farrell, that graduated from Alva last year, she is coming. She was at a junior college up in Kansas, and she's coming back to play for us next year. So we're excited to have her. But there are no current ones from this graduating class that are coming. We've added a girl from Fairview that's coming, Taylor Sell from Fairview. We've added her. But yeah, we're looking. We've signed 3 or 4 local kids from programs. I think that was my biggest thing coming in late in the recruiting process, is I wanted kids from familiar programs that know how to win. And so that's kind of what we went for, is kids that have been in programs in high school. And I think out of the 7 that we've signed, 4 of them were state championship programs. So we want kids that come in from a winning program that aren't just good players, but know how to get it done and know what it takes to get it done. So,
I met a girl from Southwestern that she's recruited.
Yes. Yes, we pulled her away from the dark side.
Is the girl from Fairview, is she a tall girl?
No, she's their point guard. She was their starting point guard for this year.
It doesn't make any difference, but I'm just curious to know how tall you are.
I'm about 5'11". On a good day. I was never 6 foot. I wish. Now, when I put my heels on to coach, I'm over 6 foot.
What did Thunder do wrong?
Oh, goodness gracious. Don't get me started on that. I do like Steph Curry, though, so I am a Thunder fan, but I am a big fan of Steph Curry and his game. So I enjoyed watching the series. I didn't think we made adjustments defensively, honestly, the last couple times. And when it goes back to the ball screen, I think there were some things we probably could have done differently, but it's easy to say that when I'm home on my couch and not on the sideline, so...
And your
Oh, sorry.
husband, what does he do?
He works for a marketing company in Edmond. I call him the junk mail guy. He works for a mass mailing company, so anytime you get junk mail from like Sonic and car dealerships, you can blame him as you throw it in the trash.
One question I had is that you have 10 returning girls that have faced a really tough transition to D2 basketball. How are you going to keep them motivated, fresh, getting them game ready?
I think they are extremely excited about what's to come. Like you said, that they have been through a rough time. And I could tell as soon as I got there, just them kind of feeling me out. They were trying to see how things were going to go. But they're ready for somebody to come in that cares about them and then is ready to stay and put together a system. They're excited. They want to win, and they're ready, I think, to do what it takes to win. And we'll start kind of putting all those pieces together when I get them back in August. But I think the ones that we have coming back are ready for it. So.
How many players can you have?
We're supposed to fill an 18-spot roster. And like I said, we have 17 right now, and we're looking to add 1 or possibly 2 more at this time.
Is there anybody specifically that you've seen that can help us on the inside game?
Well, we actually have a girl coming today. We are trying to fill that spot at the 4-5 position. We have signed a post girl. I don't know if she will be. We're waiting to check on her eligibility status. But that is the position that we are heavily recruiting right now. So, and mostly from the junior college.
How does your size stack? I mean, height.
That is probably the weakness right now, and like I said, in my system and what we'll try to do defensively, I'm not so worried about having a 6'3", 6'4" post girl. I just want somebody that can defend a 6'3", 6'4" post girl, and then stretch that big out on the other side. I think offensively, like I said, the way the game has changed with the dribble drive and the spacing on the floor, you don't have to have a strong back to the basket post player, but you do have to have some size to be able to combat some of those. And I've kind of been around the conference. I've watched the conference the past 2 years, and I don't think it's a heavy post-filled conference. I don't think there's a lot of great post players in the conference that we play in. So I think as long as we bring some kids in that can help us defensively, then maybe we can combat that on the other end and have a mismatch offensively. Anything else? Well, thank you again for having me.
Tell you that we are all thrilled to have you here, and there's a lot of us that have been wanting somebody that's going to stay and build the program, so thank you.